So, welcome everybody to the Grit, Grace, and Progress Show, where real conversations meet rising waters and rising stakes. I'm Lamar. I got my co-host Sharon here, and I got my other host Greg's gonna be showing up shortly. But we're gonna do some deep dives today. We're gonna go into the Texas floods a little bit. See, we want to know who's being protected and who's being left behind. As we see, that's been really crazy with these floods. A lot of speculations, a lot of conversations on that. But then from a hypothetical or proactive a proactive question is, what if ICE, think about this, what if ICE start profiling African Americans? Because right now we see a lot of profiling going on. They haven't made a big push yet on the people of color that were enslaved here in the United States, nor have they been pushing to do anything with Native Americans, which they probably can't because they were here before they got here, right? So we ain't gonna worry about that. So, and finally, it's time for the Black church to reclaim its prophetic voice in politics. If you think about it, um, if you look at the civil rights movement, it was the church that really like kind of pushed all that in to help get some of the legislation moved to allow us to get the Civil Rights Act. But just think about it like this. These aren't just headlines. They're questions that demand clarity, conscience, and community. So let's talk about what's really going on. When you look at the Sharon from a flood standpoint, from the floods, what caught your attention when you first saw that?
Um, Being from Louisiana and having experienced flood times, it just makes you understand how vulnerable those people were. So, if you've never experienced a flood, what happens is, in the case of those individuals, they went to bed that night. And if they didn't hear, and my thing is, even if there were alerts or notices, they were in a remote area.
Right,
It's like that they might not even get the notices or the warnings that there was a flash flood.
right,
Have people, because it seems like that was a camping area, so possible that there that weren't familiar with that area and the history of floods.
yeah,
But actually, what happens, even when you have warnings, you never know when your area is going to flood. I can
right,
remember one, and at this point, I was an adult. I had been in Louisiana for the went to bed Christmas night, and the next morning, my mother knocks on the bedroom door, and she said, "Look out the window." I
right,
look out the window, and the front yard looked like a lake.
right,
And that particular time, they didn't even have notice to get the cars to higher grounds. We had to get out of the house in a boat. And so is that it's very, very difficult in terms of evacuation because sometimes it can happen so quickly. And so I guess because that area had history, there should have been more warnings. From what I'm hearing, they knew that they knew that there was a problem. So I would say there is some responsibility for those that knew that area was a problem. They knew the warning system was not up to speed, and it was their responsibility to protect those vulnerable to the flash floods.
yeah. I would definitely agree with that. 100%. I would definitely agree with that. So Greg, what was your thoughts when you saw these floods?
Good morning, everybody. Pardon me for being late. Um, it may sound morbid, but I'm like, see, y'all messed around and found out.
Mhm.
Y'all kept putting things off and putting things off and saying we don't need this and we don't need that. And you can't control God.
Right,
And there are things that are happening that just because you don't like it, don't mean that it won't happen.
right,
And because you don't agree with it, don't mean that it don't happen. And my premise has always been, If you do not respect nature, it will kill you and move on.
Right.
Period.
Agree. I agree.
So,
Totally agree with that. I'm going to show a
you get
little
what you
video.
got.
I'm going to show a little video here from some of these flash
Heartbreak and
floods.
disbelief in Texas as the nation's deadliest flash flood event in nearly 50 years took
You
so
can add the
many by
volume to that.
surprise.
You don't hear the volume of that?
And then the water
It's low.
swept him away, and he got caught in the outdoor
Can you hear
kitchen.
it?
Cars were floating away
better.
with the lights on. You can hear honking. And there was like not one or two, but there were dozens of vehicles just floating away.
We look at local officials facing questions over forecasts and warning systems. President Trump's signature spending agenda is now signed into law. How will it affect Americans?
It's a really kind of a big moment, I think, in our social policy history that the federal government says, yes, saving and investing should start as early as birth for every kid in America.
And as the Department of Justice finds no foul play in Jeffrey Epstein's death, the MAGA base and some top right-wing media figures believe there's a cover-up. Hello and welcome to PBS News Weekly. I'm Laura Barone Lopez. Tragedy in Texas Hill Country this week as sudden massive flooding over the July 4th holiday killed more than 100 people, destroyed hundreds of homes, and left lives forever changed. As search and recovery crews continue their work, officials expect the death toll to keep growing. Special correspondent Christopher Booker has our report from Kerr County, Texas, about the latest efforts on the ground.
In the heart of Texas Hill Country, football coach Tate Damasco has found a way to give back.
Who wants to eat?
Through the nonprofit Mercy Chefs, Damasco is delivering hot meals to victims of last weekend's flooding.
The first thing was, oh my gosh, this is where I live, look at it. The next thing was, how are we ever going to get past all this?
One of the families receiving help is Martha and Miles Murayama.
I jumped up and came to the door, and he looked out, and the water was already above the windows.
Really?
So he went out the back door, and then the water swept him away, and he got caught in the outdoor kitchen.
Your husband?
Yeah.
While Martha's husband Miles survived, nearly everything in her home did not. But for now, they're leaning on their community.
We've been blessed, and we've had a lot of help from our church, from all the guys that have been out and helping us. Day one, my daughter and I were ripping out floors, and we had some help from some friends and started cleaning up.
Back at the Mercy Chef's kitchen, volunteers from across the country have prepared more than 10,000 meals since Saturday.
Thank you guys, love y'all, appreciate you being with us.
Chef Gary LeBlanc founded the organization.
We hear so many of the stories. The ones that really hit me are the first responders that are in here, the search and rescue teams that come in to eat, and they sit, they take a few bites, and they put their head down in their hands, and then you ask them, how are you? And they just look up with this 1,000-yard away stare, and they say, you know, I've just seen things today that I can never unsee.
Search teams are now using heavy equipment to peel away layers of tree and debris along the river, and finding more victims, like veteran Bill Venus, who served in the Army for 33 years, or 21-year-old Joyce Catherine Baden, who was trapped in a house along the Guadalupe River on July 4th. These satellite images show the scale of devastation along the Guadalupe River. It's in this low-lying part of Kerr County that's lined with campgrounds like Camp Mystic, where just 2 days before the floods, state inspectors reportedly signed off on a disaster plan. The details of that plan are unclear. Local officials continued to dodge questions about how and when the county alerted residents about the floods. According to local reports, an area firefighter requested a code red warning as floodwaters rose in the early hours of July 4th. But today, officials declined to give a timeline for when the county's code red system was activated.
We're going to get that answer. And I know that's going to be asked over and over. Please understand that. You know, we're not running, we're not going to hide from everything. That's going to be checked into at a later time. I wish I could tell you that time. I don't know that time.
And today, President Trump's nominee to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association said he would work to improve weather warning communications.
That's one issue.
For now, though, the search continues for families and a community seeking answers and closure.
Texas officials.
So, this is the part that gets me, is that they had a plan they were about to put in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they can't tell you details about this plan. And the thing that really bothers me the most is that when the the guy that's over the weather, team or whatever, the last guy they showed, he said that we're going to do things better, like try to work on plans to do things better. So, of course, everybody's pointing fingers to all the federal cuts that happen. There's this conversation back and forth that the federal cuts contribute to this, and then there's the no federal cuts had nothing to do with this, and all that. Okay, these floods have been happening for decades in that area, not every year, but they have big floods in that area. My question is, why did the state of Texas? Because I posted this on our group chat that we're in on Facebook, and I was like, I listed that these um, sirens could have been put in time a long time ago, but they were cutting the cost. The state of Texas, which reminds me to our electrical grid, where they didn't want to put the cost in to protect the people here in this state. I'm a Texas resident. Sharon's a Texas resident. We've seen where the state rather give these billionaires who own these segments of our state, like our electrical grid. Those are billionaires that's running that. That ECOT is running that. They rather keep the money for them instead of put it toward the resources needed to make people's lives better. This has nothing to do with in my opinion, a Republican Democrat issue when it comes to lives being lost. It's about our country coming together, our states, each state coming together to put the resources in place to make sure that lives are saved. And that was just frustrating. You all can chime in on that if you want, but that was the frustrating part for me.
I would just say, you said they mentioned they could not show the plan. I'm going to replace those words with did not want to show the plan, because if it was a plan that they felt good about and it was efficient for the devastation, then they would show it.
Right.
I would say the plan, they know that plan failed.
Right.
And so that's why they do not want to expose it.
Yeah. So what do you think what should the role of our emergency management system and siren failures be like? What should that actually look like to you?
I think most of the time from a federal standpoint, they usually would have more funding to do, more of the things that are needed at a time like that. And so I think little by little, whether it's a flood or anything else that the federal government had in place that's being torn apart, it's going to be exposed at how vulnerable this country is going to be left because of the tearing down of the structure that they had in place.
Right. No, I agree with you. From a community impact, I want to throw this at you, Greg. From a community impact, because we know my man Greg is all about community and building community, but I know he take no shorts in giving his opinion. But when I look at from a community impact, I look at displacement of low income and rural communities. This happened to be a rural community that was primarily MAGA. But from my opinion, your political affiliation shouldn't matter when it comes to safety. I mentioned it earlier. And then you look at what's going to happen coming forward is the insurance gaps and rebuilding challenges that are going to come in this community. And most likely it will be good to see faith-based and grassroots responses to the disaster relief because of although you look at Mercy, who brought the food in, they did that on their own. I don't think it was more so a contract. Even if they had a contract with the city, I think they moved on it over what I understand that owner was doing. So for Greg, I mean, what do you see coming down this path of rebuilding and how these communities are going to respond? What's your take on it?
We're not seeing rebuilding. We are seeing deconstruction and the results of it. when Trump came into his first term and started putting in positions of power over departments that had no experience in those, they had no other choice but to ask him, what should I do? What should I do? And so he's building his dream. It got snipped in the bud. He got voted out, but now he's back because he's convinced everybody that all I got to do is give you something that sounds fly and sounds mean, and everybody else going to jump on board because whiteness protects itself. And if anybody is against it, then they call them racist. They always take our terms and flip them. But I've watched and I remember Hurricane Katrina. I remember Hurricane Hugo. I remember how they displaced people, but salvaged the cities and made improvements. And we have now a Doppler network that can fully track any storm. I remember watching hurricanes form as they come off the coast of Africa and come across the Atlantic. You can't do that now.
Right.
They dismantled, they come in and they fired everybody. And they did this across the board. So they have you worried about your Social Security. They have you worried about health care. They have you with these bills and stuff. So you're looking at the hand over here, this hand, but you don't see what this hand is doing behind the scene.
Well, can I give you some pushback?
But nature don't follow your plan.
Yeah.
So it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse.
Well, I would say
they're not even talking about the plague that is now surfaced in Arizona.
Well, let me give you some pushback. Let me give you some pushback a little bit. I hear everything you're saying about Trump's nominees, but in this particular case, we're talking about the head of NOAA, NOAA. He is the Secretary of Commerce for Ocean and Atmosphere, who serves as the administrator. He's held that position. His name is Richard W. Spinard, PhD. He was nominated by President Biden and confirmed by the Senate. He holds a doctorate in oceanography, indicating a strong background in marine device, right? So he has the experience. Okay.
And what did he do?
He has, hold on, let me finish. He has an expertise in climate science, leadership role, and he was confirmed by the Senate. Now, you were saying, what did he do? The thing about it is that in this situation, it wasn't what those sirens that went off, okay, that should be going off. Why weren't they in place along that river? That's a state
because it
issue.
was a state issue.
Right. That's a state issue.
They made it a state issue.
And that's what I've talked about
earlier.
It
back to the states. But in the process, since 47 got into power, he made that same person who had the expertise, and you can look it up.
Right.
Made him quit. Right?
Right.
And he made a farewell address to tell him what was going to happen.
Right.
You're dismantling this.
Right.
So
I got you on that.
What you saw happen in Texas was predicted.
He
predicted it.
Right. But was it before it being a state issue? And I'm not, I'm not going to get into an argument of who states' rights or not. But my thing is this, that I personally blame the governor of Texas in this particular situation. No,
I blame every voter. I blame every voter
that too
wanted to restructure the government before they understood how the government worked.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree. Oh, I agree with you on that. I totally agree. You're absolutely right.
So
we're on the same page with that. But
Right, but
well,
there's no pushback on that. The accountability falls by the wayside when everybody plays a part in their own destruction. Now you're
agreed.
gonna make me blame somebody else because the person next door to me don't like me?
Do you think
My
that?
parents grew up in an era, my parents grew up in an era where there was Jim Crow, where there was KKK, but you know what? They knew their neighbors and they knew who belonged to who, and they had personal relationships with
Right,
them.
right.
Now we
Agreed.
don't have personal relationships with our neighbor. We got
No,
strangers living next to strangers.
I
And
I
now you see it happening and want to say, well, this is the person that should come and rescue, and this is who should be done. And you know what? It starts at the beginning. It starts with family. It starts with raising your kids. It starts with teaching them right. It starts because they're in a society that you must play a part in it, whether you like it or not.
yeah.
What's best for the group is best for everybody. You don't have to agree,
So what
but
does
we
this
live in
look
a
like?
time where everybody wants agreement.
So from either one
What
of
does
you
it look
all,
like?
what's no, hold on. What does the reform look like?
Back to what Greg said about holding the voters responsible.
Definitely.
So this happened in rural America. Who does rural America support? So what's
Mm,
going to happen is over time, the rural America was fed the hatred and they bought into it. That is their biggest thing that they bought into, hatred for other uh I'll say people of color.
mhm.
So they bought into that. So they thought by putting him in place, they bought into his rhetoric, putting him in place would hurt those people. But now what they're finding out is they're gonna hurt too.
So they're the victims
They're
of their
gonna
own
hurt
votes.
exactly. They're gonna hurt just as if not more than the people that they voted against.
Oh,
And so hopefully I it probably won't, but hope start teaching them a lesson in that, the old saying, you dig a ditch, you better dig too.
so you guys went exactly where I wanted you to go. Don't think I'm pushing back because I'm ignorant and didn't know. I'm pushing back to the narrative that people will hear. So I brought up the Biden issue. I brought up the fact that he was qualified, but I also know that when people vote against their best interests, these are the results. Now I'm going to throw a twist to it. Different magnitude of impact, but the same result. Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina destroyed a whole community where many
Whole city,
people,
that was several communities.
well, several communities. But the point I'm
Right.
making is that to this day, it's impacted people to this day that those people, a lot of those people didn't return home. Many of them are living right here in Texas. I met quite a few of them. And I look at the flip of this is that this happened to a rural community, majority Caucasian community. But what really shows a stronger um, indication of of bad leadership is that both of these catastrophes happened under Republican rule to this magnitude. Now we could go back to last year, up in Asheville area of North Carolina, where you had the hurricane effects. The difference is those hurricane issues couldn't have been prevented. Hurricane Katrina could have been helped in a sense of how they structured that area that was impacted by that flood, from what I understand. I'm not sure exactly. What I understand, there could have been ways of of helping, first of all, that area because it's sitting low in, underneath sea level. Could things have
But
been put in place?
look at look at that time before Hurricane Katrina hit.
Okay.
When the inspections came along, And one of the provisions was historical places and buildings that were built at a certain time, if they were considered historical, didn't have to meet standards of the time. And this Hurricane Katrina came and washed all that away. So now when they're rebuilding,
Come here, I can hear you.
they have to rebuild the code.
Come to
And
the door,
that's
Cheryl.
more expensive and takes more time. And people
What are you
lost
trying to
their
do?
patience with that process because I live in a
Yeah.
society that wants everything
The
yesterday.
doorway's not on, Cal.
You want to
What are
be
you trying to
done. You're supposed to have supplies sitting on the side somewhere
Yeah,
where I can
you
get
look at my
an
computer.
instant part replaced.
No.
And that's not how things go.
Okay.
That's not the reality. People want shortcuts, and shortcuts can't be done when people's lives are at stake.
Oh, yeah, you 100% right on that, man. 100% right on that. So when you look at, go ahead.
So when Katrina happened, the first thing that crossed my mind was now all those people who had their bouginess, had their money, when there ain't no electricity and you can't get to your money, you on the same page as the one that didn't have no money in the start page and didn't start with. And if you don't have community to lean on, then you probably lose your mind and really feed that hatred that's in your soul because you can't get your way.
Correct.
And we are a country that is in our feelings, and everybody wants their way and everybody wants to be right.
Right. No, you absolutely right on that as well. When I look at those two scenarios of what can we do to prevent or what can we do to make things better, those are two different groups of people. I mean, we even go back to the hurricane that hit Miami area. But I look at hurricanes, a lot of those just it's hard to prevent a hurricane that we get in the way. But the infrastructure of what you do around your city to help prevent does make a difference. And that's why I use that comparison with the flooding, because again, we go back to the notification.
Your language.
But
you can't prevent a hurricane, but you can deal with prevention of the catastrophe that a hurricane brings.
Right.
Even those that lived on an island before there was ever oceanic, whatever, when they realized that these winds are coming, they knew where the cave was. Go get in the cave, because if you're out here on the island, you're going to get washed away or blown off.
Right.
Right. So we need to quit hiding behind the rhetoric and pay attention to what we're saying. The government has never been forthright about anything for the public because they felt it their right to protect them from themselves.
Right.
And now you don't have any of that protection around. And this technology has removed all of the discernment that comes from reading. And we're seeing the results.
Well, that's evident. I mean, we see that's evident of the lack of education of these people.
So it
that's
starts
true.
with knowing your neighbor. Let's get back to knowing our neighbor. Let's get back to talking to people who look different, live different, and have something, a different view than me and all my friends. Because it's the discernment, the variety that God created, and we're all Christians here, and each of us was made individually and specifically for God's purpose. And where you're strong, I don't have that ability. And there's some things that I have an ability to that you lean on me for. That's been part of our friendship. You know, we introduced Sharon and EB, and we got some more people in the wings that want to come into this. And great grace and progress comes from having different points of view come together and talk and form a consensus. We don't have anybody that's teaching how to form a consensus, not the judiciary, not the legislative branch, not the executive branch. And that's across the board in our country, in our states, in our counties, and in our cities. So we have to come back to, let's organize. I'm just trying to get a community in my apartment building.
Right.
If we can get together, then we can put up some roadblocks for ICE to come in here. And we got people from all different backgrounds.
Right.
All different ethnicities. And that's how we resolve this.
Right.
We're not going to do this today. We're not going to come up with no quick fix idea and somebody going to come along and do what we think should be done. We have to get into the mud. And just like you showed on there, the neighborhood, they happen to have a chef that lived in the neighborhood, called his boys. When we're in Cleveland and Tamir Rice, his life was taken, it was our neighborhood that came together around that family, right?
I remember that. Yeah. I mean, I had classmates.
And that's where we have to go.
So getting back to, like I said, this particular situation, we already established the fact that the voters voted against their best interests and became their own victims. So we established that. That means they need to go reevaluate what just happened. It's not about how I can be a step ahead of the man I look lower than, because you're always going to put yourself in a victim in that situation. So community goes in multiple ways. We have universal community amongst different groups of people. We have our own close communities. We have our own networks that we deal with to build these communities. When I look back at that, I don't think personally, my personal opinion, that this impact changed their mind any kind of way in how they're going to vote. My personal opinion. I don't see that as happening because we have we can go 400 years of examples that it doesn't matter, that they'll kill their own just to prove a point that they want to vote a certain way. But I want to switch lanes a little bit. I want to bring up another video dealing with racial profiling and where this is going to lead to us, because we know ICE has been out there causing havoc across the country. Homeland Security got this little alligator island out here, or whatever they want to call it, for people. It's getting out of hand. And my question has always been, African Americans right here in our country, when will they be next? Because the way this administration is going, there are no rules, there are no laws. I can see the pushback happening. This takes me back to the mindset of the Black Panthers when they were protecting their own communities. We saw yesterday, the last couple of days ago in California, there was two different issues where migrants people were around a detention center and they pushed back on police officers. Then we saw it again around a dispensary where they pushed back and one guy was seen on camera shooting at the police officers. This is the havoc that is coming to that is happening in our country, and it scares me for that point, because when we talked about when you ready and prepared, you ain't got to get ready. Sharon know what I'm talking about. This is what many people have been preparing for, is really citizens against the government. And I'm gonna throw this in right quick. I don't hear it. Hold on.
No sound.
For detaining the United States citizen who was born and raised in Brentwood, Long Island.
Who are you looking for exactly? Because it's definitely not me. We see ID, please.
Lemus, though, refused to offer ID after agents didn't tell him more details, which legal officials say is within his rights, since they were demanding it without any reasonable suspicion.
Okay, if you don't get your ID, then we're gonna have to figure out another way to ID you. It may not work out well for you.
Without a warrant, the ICE agent is then seen reaching in and opening the passenger door of the car Lemus was riding in on his way to work as an electrician around 7:30 in the morning on June 3rd.
I am a victim because of my race.
Lemus says the ICE agents refused to identify themselves despite being asked for their names and badge numbers.
And as a former police officer and detective with over 20 years, I know exactly what lawful policing looks like and what it does not look like, and this was not it.
Lemus's lawyer insists they were racial profiling him.
A violation of our laws and rights.
Lemus says in total he was detained here on the street in Westbury for about an hour and was in handcuffs for about 20 minutes.
I was made to feel as though I was a criminal.
The Nassau County Police Department did not provide a comment, and it's still unclear whether they played a role. But the county is one of the few where local government and police have entered into an agreement to work with ICE.
Deeply troubling to see our civil rights being trampled on like this.
Local leaders now trying to pass a new bill that would prohibit law enforcement agencies from cooperating with ICE, saying they have other jobs to do.
There are real crimes, real community issues that our law enforcement should be focusing on.
Lemus's lawyer is calling on the U.S. Justice Department to conduct a full investigation.
You look like someone.
The attorney of 23-year-old Elzin.
So, and I, one second. When I look at this video, we've been here already, right? We've been here already. Is there everyone else has not been there yet? Now, when it comes down to the possibility of deporting people, as we've already heard the possibility of deporting American criminals, American citizens, we have. I don't know if you all realize this, that people outside of the Black community look at Black Americans as being, majority criminals. That we are in this criminal justice system. It's like over, what was it, 53%? No, 70% of the criminal population, what I understand, don't quote me on those numbers, but it's right around there, are African Americans. 53% of African Americans that have been wrongfully accused of crimes and been in prison for long periods of time have been exonerated. That's a high number. Watch might want to call my phone right now. This is the wrong time. I'm trying to do stuff. I'm trying to do this show. I got my phone doing one thing, and I got this and that.
You forgot to put it on Do Not Disturb.
I was like, man, no, not now. So anyway, the thing about it is that I have my phone synced to my Mac. My iPhone and my iMac are synced. So my phone is on Do Not Disturb, but my Mac wasn't. So that's where I heard it coming from. So getting back to this, a lot of African Americans have been exonerated for crimes they have not committed, but they were in prison for decades at times, and then they're exonerated. When you look at other groups of people, especially Caucasian people, their population is in there too, but they only have, I think it's like 53% of them, but only 30% of them have been exonerated, over a period of time, over the years. And so you look at these numbers of how racial profiling works, and most of the white criminals weren't racially profiled. But we know Hispanics now are being racially profiled. Middle Easterners have been profiled, especially if they remember 9/11. They were profiling these people left and right. But right now we're talking about deporting people. ICE is apprehending people without due process. That's where community comes in. Like we've seen in California, where they're like, no, we're not having this no more. We're blocking this. We're stopping this. It's going to get to a point where you're going to have, people all over the streets just doing the same thing. They're going to just go through this craziness of, I ain't going to say it's craziness, but have to be armed to protect themselves against the government. This is what we're starting to see, but it's in slow phases. But what would have happened when it happens to us? Who are here by not our control. from our ancestors who was here, who was enslaved, and we're here in this country. And they're going to say, well, we're going to deport you, or you look like a Haitian, or you know what I'm saying? They're going to find things. And I think that we're going to be the next one target. What you think about
Well, I
that?
think there needs to be some structure going on right now, some planning.
Hmm.
So in each community, if this happens to you right now, we should be coming up with strategies to protect uh, our community. And, I think we got to stop being reactive and start being more proactive. And that's one of the things that I think we need to do. We need to start talking about this and have some type of system in place such that when it does start happening to us, we have, a process in place so that you have somebody that you can call to look out for you.
I agree. Do you think that our like three of our main advocates or supposed advocates for the Black community, NAACP, the Urban League, and the Black Congressional Caucus, say those three entities, and I do not see their efforts pushed forward in a proactive way, um, especially over, I'll say, the last 10 years. Ever since the first Trump term, I have not seen their aggressive push to preserve our humanity, to preserve our rights, in a way as we saw during the civil rights movement, where Lyndon B. Johnson told Dr. Martin Luther King, make me push legislation, make me do it. And he put it to a point where he had to make him do it. I don't see it like Abraham Lincoln, where Abraham Lincoln was passive with slavery, but told Frederick Douglass, basically, make me do it. And Frederick Douglass made him do it. So when you look at these things right now in our community, I would like to see more push from the NAACP, the Urban League, and the Black Congressional Caucus, not in a viral TikTok moment or a YouTube video. I want to see them creating the grassroots efforts within each community. Myself, I'm part of NAACP, and I've seen where just the lack of communication right here in North Texas with myself through email or different things that are coming up where it's delayed. Because I remember reaching out to someone saying, like, Dad, why did I get this so late? It was a meeting or an event that was going on. Like, why did I get this so late? I didn't get time to even prepare to schedule to go. And so, new in this area, not being, a centerpiece in North Texas and in the NAACP, but as a member, I feel that you should be. I haven't even seen well, I'm not even gonna go there with it because I don't want to blast people like that. But these organizations, Greg, should be more aggressive in local communities, not just standing back and calling something to their headquarters. I don't even see action in the northern suburbs of Texas here, and I don't know the last time I saw them in Cleveland. So
Drives all of that, right?
what's that?
They're into this illusion that they have to have the right cause to invest the money in, and it's not their money. The heads and the people at the top of the national organization pushes back on the local organizations to say we can't give you none of our funds. We can't do this with you. And so when you're doing the grassroots thing, people don't understand because they figure if I go to the top, then I can make you do something. And that's the thinking in the society is I don't have to, people in the military, you hear them talk about chain of command, right?
Right.
Follows a process of chain of command.
Right.
That by the time the people at the top get it, they know they've heard it before. They saw it coming. But this country now doesn't respect any chain of command. They just put it off and push you off. And even in the union space, the management, who's supposed to be following the contract, said we just deny all grievances and move it up to arbitration. You know, been in the workspace. You know, I worked for the post office for almost 40 years, right?
Right.
And I was raised a man. And people don't like unions because that's the voice of the people. And
Right.
what they're trying to do is cow the people into submission. And it's not going to work.
Oh, I totally agree.
So with the NAACP, with all of these organizations, they get federal funding or international funding, they're being made to toe a line that's not reflected of the demands of the people that they're representing.
Totally agree. So if I'll put it like this, I'm gonna toss it to Sharon. With everything that Greg just said, especially when you look at the voice of the people, and then you look at the money factor with organizations like the NAACP or the Urban League, could this come down to a ethical and moral, like the moral implications, the danger of conflating citizenship with criminality in these situations of profiling, and then it doesn't have to be a Black organization, just organizations in general that stand for humanity. Could it come to a point where it's going to be I don't know if you want to say, I use the word ethical and more moral implications, but the racial profiling is now eroding our trust in institutions, for one. That's what's being eroded. But when you're looking at citizenship with criminality and these grassroots organizations, or not even grassroots, but these national organizations collaborating with grassroots organizations, can it get to a point they're not moving? Could that be considered impacting us negatively from a moral perspective?
Um,
That was a lot there. Sorry.
yeah. I'm thinking more in terms of what does the organization stand for? So that's what is going to impact more, what the organization stands for.
Well, say Urban League. We know what they stand for. The Urban League, for instance. NAACP, the Black Congressional Caucus.
Well, I'm going to give you this too. It all depends on the leadership that's in place.
Absolutely.
And the reason I say that is because of this. I can remember working for a company, and there was a lot of discrimination going on with this company. So a fellow coworker and I went to the local NAACP for help. The guy that was the president at the time, and we joined the organization, but the leadership that they had in place at the time, he was not qualified to handle the issue that we had. We got nothing, no support, no leadership, no nothing. And so over the years, I have seen a decline in what they stood for and what they did when I was a child.
Right.
You could go to the NAACP and know that you were going to get help if you had a problem within your community.
Right.
Now, I don't know that it's structured like that anymore. I question what are you guys doing? You know, you hear very little about the NAACP these days.
Right.
And so I won't say it's so much of a moral thing. I'm going to say it's so much of a structure and leadership issue. Day and time.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So that gets back to what we mentioned earlier in the show about the local involvement, like in each community. to pick the right leaders, to vote for right leaders in these organizations. I don't know how many people, especially from a younger generation, even has a clue of the power that may be that they may have and helping organize those organizations for their self-interest to stand up against situations like this. I can't imagine. I can't. Well, a couple weeks ago we talked about on some of our previous shows we talked about ICE and we talked about how we've seen them in strict gun rights states that's really strict on gun rights. Those are like California, Massachusetts, these states where ICE was coming in, yanking people off the street because their mindset was that it's unlikely that they would have a firearm or a concealed weapon. But what happens to a strong Second Amendment state, where if they came into North Texas, they might be, especially looking for non-Hispanic people, they might be confronted with a group of people that would be heavily armed, and there would be a major confrontation. We saw it in California, and only a couple of people were armed. But in a state like Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio, those states, this may be a different outcome when it comes to how ICE apprehends people, especially if you come in with your mask on. So getting back to these Black organizations, are they going to support those type of communities, those Second Amendment communities like ours? Are they going to stand up and say, okay, we need to really, have a wall set up? It's like I said, it takes me back to the days of the Black Panthers where we had to protect our own communities against the police. I just don't think that. I'm hoping that it doesn't have the outcome the way we saw it back then, where they had to bring the National Guard in to fight against these communities. I think it'll be a little different this time. I don't think it's going to be that simple to just bring in like they did against the Hispanics, against other groups of people in large numbers. What you think about that, Greg? Are you still there with us, or did you freeze up? Greg in another zone over there. That's what it looked like. Your camera's going in and out there. But Sharon,
Muted.
yeah, but Sharon, you know what I'm saying with this, where it's going to be a point of where we're going to really have to start defending ourselves if we're looking at being a criminal when we're not being profiled, when we're being profiled. Yeah, one
Right.
more. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. We again, it comes with having a plan in place. Even if it's just a plan within in our families, like my son, if he needs me, we should have a code or he should have something. Now, one of the things I know my son does have in his car, he has cameras. He's had those for a long time. And so now we need to take it a step further, preparing to say if he stopped, then he lives in the same neighborhood as my brother. So the first phone call, maybe he could make my brother's closest to him. And he could say, hey, this is happening, this has happened, and my brother could get to him or something. So I seriously think we need to stop taking this lightly and start planning. And another thing I was going to say when you were talking about the organizations like such as the NAACP Urban League, I think because of the lack of ability, that's where Black Lives Matter. Because
Right.
In other organizations such as Black Lives Matter, because I think they felt they needed to organize something to combat some of the things that our people were going through in the different communities. But we've got to, as a people, we have just got to start coming together. And I'm not saying there are some out there that I'm sure that are doing exactly this, but we need more. We need more.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. When you look at when you mention like Black Lives Matter, one of the things is that anytime we do unite on a united front with something, the movement is hijacked. It's always been like that. But the thing about it is that we do come together. I mean, we look at that in the 24 election, it's what over 76% of the Black community voted one way. We voted for the right cause. So these different organizations that are out there do need to stand by us and be more vocal, more out front, and we should hold them accountable for it. Again,
Mhm.
like I said, during the civil rights movement, we had that. We had that, that united front. Um, I had another topic I was going to bring in the Black church and their political engagement. It was the Black church that made a movement during the civil rights
I'm sorry.
era, during the civil rights era that that made it to where um, it was they made the government make the right choices um, for the interest of all people. Because every time that we do create a movement and we do stand together, we do it for everybody. It's not just for us. The civil rights movement wasn't just for Black people. It was initiated by Black people, but it stood for everyone. And right now we look at this is the situation with ICE and these deportations. Right now we're focused on the Hispanic population. But when they come after the Black community in a way, we're going to fight in a way that's going to benefit everybody. We're not going to have policies in place or create policies that says just for us. It's going to be for everybody, and that's where the engagement with allies of different groups have to come together. Then, in that perspective, to help make this change. But because of time right now, I'm not going to really go into a deep dive on the church side of it, but I would like to um, at a later, maybe another show that we do. But I want to give you all a chance to, give your final words on these thoughts on the uh, the government with these natural disasters, and also with how racial profiling, how your last words on those two topics, racial profiling in regards to ICE and these natural disasters, and how the government and state need to the community needs to make those entities more responsible in their actions.
Well, I think we may uh, come to grips with at this time that we live in right now, as far as our federal government, they're trying to support the average person less and less. And so we've got to prepare for that time that we're living in. So I don't know if you saw where the survivors of the flood called FEMA,
Mhm.
and they haven't been able to contact FEMA.
Yeah.
FEMA was on the chopping block.
Hmm.
And so what that says for the states, and then it depends on who your governor is. Does he line up with that as well?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to take more burden is going to be put on the community to survive through catastrophes. That's the climate we live in right now, because it's like the federal government does not want any accountability. They want to do whatever they want to do,
Finger point.
and not have any accountability. And I think that's a problem for this country.
Mhm.
And in terms of racial profiling, that's another thing. It's the climate that we're living in right now. And so we're just going to have to, I don't know what the answer to that is, because you can't say don't do anything to put yourself in position to get stopped, because we see now a lot of people are law abiding citizens, and I put an emphasis on citizens, of this country that are being attacked. There's no structure in what they're doing in terms of, they just want the problem is they want numbers.
Yeah.
They don't care who you are. The thing now is they want to show numbers, because this is what I told people that was going to happen if they put me in office. So they could care less if you're innocent, guilty, or not. They just want numbers. So again, we're going to have to come together as a community and start planning for these things. I mean, I can tell you right now, sometimes I'm concerned even about my yard man. He's Hispanic.
Yeah.
I don't know what all of his, as far as he's been here a while, because he's been doing my yard for over 15 years now.
Yeah.
And so as far as I know, all of his stuff is in order. But you know, from day to day, we just don't know. And
Right.
so we just have to just pray and hope that things don't get as bad as what they have the perception now to get.
Yeah.
And
Well,
just be prepared.
what about you, Greg?
You know, I've been trying to figure out how I can say this quickly and shortly, and there's no way. I learned from a lady called Dr. Joy DeGruy.
Oh, yeah.
About post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Yeah.
What it's really about, and about the experiments that, even with lab animals, that you can condition an animal to react a certain way to a certain stimulus, and it's passed on in the genes for generations. And it reminded me of Isaac Newton, and when he was talking about evolution. And we are the results. We here today understand our feelings a lot better than our counterpart in the white nationalists. But we're all human beings. So we've all been conditioned in our circumstance. And just imagine the trauma that they feel after generations of thinking that they've been all that and a bag of chips, that they've been top dog, that they've been all the way over here, and we're on top of the pyramid, and everybody else need to bow down. That's been passed on for generations. There's no way that I couldn't understand that when we confront them with the reality, they don't want to hear it. It makes them feel bad. Skip Bayless said that about watching Sinners. And you know what? That's a you problem. You have to deal with your circumstance, and you know how wrong it is, but our children ask questions that make us relive our past and come to an understanding of, am I living in my daddy's trauma? Am I living in my granddaddy's trauma? Maybe that's not what's happening today.
Right.
So now they're going to banning books, banning this, and they don't want to talk about that. And so, you know what? I'm with Dr. Carr. Let it all come crashing down.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt some people. Ain't nobody coming to rescue us. And you can put a mask on your face if you want to. Your children see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? My grandson is in my face all the time. Papa, why you doing that? Right? So we need to start understanding that we have to be in community with people that don't look like us. I have to protect my neighbors. And if we build as a people, then outside influences can't come into our community and direct. And what you were talking about, the civil rights era, they had been doing that since the time of Du Bois and Frederick Douglass.
Yes, true.
Right? They had been building these plans and pieces. And if you look and read the history, There were people in the same area in New York, powerful people headed for the civil rights that saw things differently, but they took care of the community. They let the children grow and be children.
Mhm.
Now our children got to deal with adult decisions. Am I gonna see my granddad again? You know, my mom's gone to work all the time, and don't nobody care about me unless they yelling at me. Everybody want to beat me. I got whoopings. Yes, I got whoopings. But best be assured that was not their first redirection.
Mhm.
That was the last straw. And I always pushed it to the edge.
Mhm.
That's my nature
Right.
as an African,
Right.
right? We got to learn to love each other. We got to
Good.
love each other's differences. And differences are not a point of contention. They're an expansion of points of view that you will never see.
Agree.
The
Totally
only
agree.
way you're gonna
I told
ICE hits our community. I just sent a link into our Signal chat
Mhm.
title, After Morehouse Grad Detained by ICE, HBCU Community Sounds Alarm.
Yeah, let me check that
Held
out.
Blue Bonnet Detention Facility in Texas.
Mm. Okay. Well, I mean, I knew it was
Yes.
happening. Go ahead.
And they did, it says his classmates and supporters mobilized on social media for legal aid and pushed for his release.
Mm. There you go. There you go. So it's happening, and we have to be we have to be alert. We have to be aware and focused on what our actions are going to be when these things happen. We have to have things
Huh.
in place.
And Lamar, just to let you know how close to home this is, it said this happened outside of Dallas, Texas.
Hmm. I believe it. I mean, I believe it.
But we gotta add that as we grow our community, we have to understand that everybody's impacted by the trauma that we're living through right now.
Right. I agree. So I'm not going to belabor this any longer. We're running out quarter after the hour. We get on these conversations, we could go all day and forever. And the whole thing is, and I want people to understand that we have these conversations because, like Greg said, that even when people, because you're not in a particular demographic, doesn't mean that the different demographics can't work together. That's the main thing is this has nothing to do with political alignment. It has to do with building your communities. We don't have to always agree, but one thing we should agree on is what's best for each other as a human, as a person, and that each person's rights should not be violated. And we should push that structure. So if anything resonated with anybody today, the brokenness, the hope, the call to accountability, share this episode. Share this episode. We're on YouTube. Great grace and progress. The real change starts with real conversations. Now, if you've just been part of one, follow, comment, and let me know what your role should be, whether it's faith, community, justice, plan in today's society of how you're going to move forward. And until next time, y'all, stay rooted, stay ready, stay real. This is Great Grace and Progress.